Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
So we are going to have a little bit of fun now because we'll talk about our opponents. Now, Rosie, you've already done Phil for Man City. We gave, because Phil's the cleverest member of the team, so we gave him the biggest challenge to do Man City.
Let's start with Man City. So who are their key signings and departures?
So do you want me to do that bit first, yeah?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'll do. So their departures as we go live now, all right, is Jesus, Fernandinho, Shevchenko, and Sterling, right? Ignore the keepers because they seem to change all of the stuff, right, all the time, yeah? So they're your four main ones, and they've brought in Haaland, Phillips, and Alvarez. Yeah, the other rumoured one is Cucurella, which also Chelsea are interested in as well. So that doesn't happen at the moment, but that was early season, was rumoured to be in. So I sort of looked at those units and said, well, what's the percentage difference between the player going out and coming in? Yeah. As your main metrics in terms of XG, non-penalty XG, assists, and equally, if you look on FB Brief, there's the plus or minus 90, so how much they add into their team's performance. It's quite interesting. If you look at minutes, the only player that has done more minutes than the player he would be replacing is the one they haven't signed yet. So Cucurella has 3,000 minutes over, and Shevchenko only had 1,800. So all the other players coming in have played less than the players they're replacing. So Jesus played 2,600 minutes. Haaland only played 2,300. Alvarez is limited data because of his youngster and he's from South America, but I played 1,111, and Sterling played just over 3,000 minutes. So there's a difference there in terms of the minutes played. You could argue that Grealish was brought in last season to replace Sterling, maybe, and he'll play more this year. But I think there's still a bit of those Shevchenko minutes at the moment are not covered in the back line. That's 1,800 worth of minutes of cover that they haven't brought into the squad.
Yeah.
In terms of their impact on the side, should we say? So the difference between the forwards, and once you start doing it in percentage difference, it got a bit shocking for me, really. So Jesus added 1.5 XG to them as a team, right? Now, the difference between him and Haaland is minus 52%. Yeah, so that's the difference. Haaland, his impact on the side was still positive, but it's not as positive as Jesus. Now, you've got the Bundesliga tax in that as well. So you could argue that Haaland's
got to be a factor, hasn't it?
Which has got to be a factor. So that could go either way, though. That could mean that Haaland's impact in terms of City in the Premier League could be even less. Yeah. In terms of the midfield choice, so although we look at Fernandinho being the guy who always used to do cheap fouls, always annoy us, by doing that, he added actually 1.4 XG when he was on the pitch. Now, Phillips, yes, he was playing in a poor lead side last season, had a negative 0.48. So that's quite a big change. Now, I'm not saying Phillips won't have a negative impact on City. I think he's a good player, but that's a different type of player in terms of what he's offering. He also doesn't offer him as much as XG or assists as Fernandinho did. So that's a different player they've brought in terms of midfield. Sterling. Now, Alvarez's numbers, because they're really hard to get hold to, and they're not as well resourced. They're not that bad when compared to Sterling. He's probably the only signing that I'd say compared well. He's actually ahead of Sterling in terms of XG, non-penalty XG, and assists. So Alvarez's assists per 90 or 0.46, where Sterling was 0.2. So that could be a really good signing for them. But the fact that he's only played just over 1,000 minutes and Sterling's used to doing 3,000 minutes. again, you're asking quite a lot of a kid to come in and fill those boots. So, yeah, I think it's a change. And I would suggest that by not replacing Zinchenko, they're going to have to spread that load at the back. And there's minutes at the front in the forward unit, which they're going to have to work out and replace. They might already have resources involved with Grealish. And Alvarez was rumoured to be going out loan, although he played on Saturday, so he might be kept. The other part I looked at, this is my remember, I ran a model on how City produced their non-penalty XG. So what are the factors that are correlated to that, and we can produce a model.
It's the same Monte Carlo model.
No, it's a slightly different one. This is using regression analysis. So, and the key factors in terms of City's play that through that regression analysis, which is looking at how certain variables impact the output. In this case, what attacking metrics significantly affect City's ability to produce non-penalty XG, and those factors, as I mentioned last season, were long pass completion, key passes, and dribble success. Okay, so they were quite distinctive patterns of City's play. And when you look at the players coming in, none of them improve those metrics. They're all negative to over 50% of those metrics. The only one that comes near to replacing the player who he is in terms of those metrics is, again, the player they haven't signed, Cucurella, who is not far off the impact that Zinchenko said. So taking that all into account, this does suggest to me that City are tweaking what they do because the players are coming in don't seem to have the same profile as the players they're replacing, if that makes sense.
So you're making a good case here, Phil. I'm getting excited. Stop. Right, we need to have a look at what... Is there anything that there was... Like last season, their numbers were obviously... And I assume this season that we should expect them to just get pretty much the same, and it was whether we could top what they got last season.
Yeah.
Is there anything they're running hot and cold at? Because it's stats analysis. We need to...
No, for me, I'm always about big loads of numbers, right? So again, using the same method I used to Liverpool, their defence and attack were bang on. Scoring, their median was 96. They scored 99 goals, so they probably slightly outperformed by 3 goals. But the standard deviation, which is like the range, if you like,
it's just complete randomness. That
it's pretty much they scored what they should have scored, if that makes sense. Defensively wise, again, absolutely bang on. Mean of 25, median 26, standard deviation of 4. So, they were in line with the metrics as much as you could have expected from last season. The amount of XG they conceded, the amount of XG they took in shots, if you like. So, for me, I mean, the range there for defensively is 5 as in standard deviation, and the range for attacking is 7.5. So. The question for me with City is, because those players coming in don't match up the metrics of the players they're replacing, would that mean that range comes into about and they're defending and attacking and it goes the wrong way for them? So they regress by goal scoring and they regress by they concede more than they should do. I think you could read into that something with the numbers, but again, we don't know. They might tweak the system, and I think you've also got the fact that they haven't covered the defensive minutes, and they might not have covered the attacking minutes. So, whereas we suffered with our players basically fatigued at the end of the season, they might have that same issue, and I think they might have more players going to the World Cup.
So just to try and summarise this for City, are we saying the key things to watch for them are the players that they've replaced, are the players that they've bought to replace those that have left? You think they've got an issue with replacing all the minutes because it let some volume leave?
Yeah.
And you're not even sure on the quality if you're just looking at the XG replacement. Is that?
Yeah, I'm not saying.
Is that their weaknesses?
Yeah, I'm not saying that Haaland's not a good player, right? I'm just saying he's different to what he's replacing. No. So I think they're all good players. What they've signed, they're just different. They're not the same. Whereas we've brought a player in who largely fits a profile of player we wanted, right? He fits in. You can see how he does similar things. I think Sai said Diaz is very much like the early Mane for us, right? Without the finishing. So that Jota very much fits in like a glove, does what he needs to do. For me, these City signings are not that. they're different, which point to me that Pep is trying to tweak the system. If he gets that right, fair enough. Yeah, they could find another way to produce an XG. I'd be more worried about the fact that Shevchenko, as much as he wasn't a starter for them, he still covered a lot of minutes in defence. And they started the weekend with, two of their starting centre-halves missing, both first-choice fullbacks. But I'm just saying, they had issues with Walker's availability at the end of last season. So I would suggest that their availability of players and the minutes to cover in defence particularly could cause them issues. But then they've got a few days left to go and buy another £50 million fullback. So, you know.
And they have spent quite a bit on their £50 million fullbacks in the past. So this is my favourite bit. We've done 20-odd minutes. This is where you've got to put your neck on the line, Phil, and you have to go with a prediction for... We'll start with City, because we're on them. So we want points, goals scored, goals conceded, position.
Okay, so I've got that. I think they'll concede nearer 30 goals this season. Wow. I think they will be slightly less on the goal scoring. So I think they scored 99 last season. I think they'll be in and around 96.
Which is basically what she is.
Which is what the MCs are saying to me, what the predictions are saying. So I would suggest they can see more goals and they score slightly less. Not by a lot. We're talking little margins here and there, but that's pretty much where we are, isn't it? With this dogfight of 90-odd points. It literally takes a goal here and there and the title changes.
3 out of 4 seasons now, isn't it, Phil? So.
Yeah. And I think that'll mean... I actually think they'll get the same... I think 93 points. So I think they'll get 93 points.
Now I know you on the clock now, Rosie. So do you want? You've got Tottenham Hotspur. Do you want to go next? And me and Si can wrap up ours after you have to duck off.
Yeah, Tottenham are quite interesting. A lot of people are big on the Tottenham bandwagon, aren't they? And I think there's fair reason. They had the highest non-penalty XG per shot last season, which is always good if your process of creating shots is creating the highest. It was 0.13. So the range between the top and the bottom is 0.13 to 0.09, but across a big sample of games, that's significant, as we know from people that, the shot quality. We're talking about Diaz, and then we're talking about, Mane, so it does matter. Yeah. But what have they added? No, before I come to what they added, what did they do last season once Conte came in? Because they had a terrible start to the season, didn't they? And when they came in...
After 3 games.
Yeah. from when Conte arrived to when they finished the season, their performance was definitely the third best. They were the third best team in the league. They scored 60 goals from 54 non-penalty XG, so a tiny bit of performance there. And they conceded 24 from 27 with a non-penalty XG difference of 28. So that is really impressive. But it's nearly, it's that magic figure that we talk about, Dan. It's nearly 1 non-penalty XG difference a game, which you can challenge for a title with that, with a bit of fortune. Teams have won titles with less, but in a league that consists of Man City and Liverpool with their levels that they're at in the past 4 years, that's not going to be enough. So have they added anything with their transfers to take them above and towards the 1.2, 1.3 levels? I don't know. Is the answer to that question? Maybe they've added. Let me just get it up now. Their signings is the big one. The most expensive was Richarlison from Everton. Yeah, I really liked him when he first went to Everton. I think I've got a bit of bias in me of how he's performed in recent seasons, but he seems like a really good Conte player. His defensive work for a forward is pretty much as good as it gets, according to StatsBomb. 93rd percentile for pressures.
He can cover every position up front,
Yes.
He plays centre forward.
Versatile. Yeah. he gets his shots, 2.5 shots a game, 0.2 for his assists. But in the last 12 months, he's not been very good, but he was in a very poor team. So it's hard to judge that. They signed Yves Bissouma, again, another player that I think we've been linked with in the past. Again, a Conte player. He's got the pass completion, but he's also hasn't got the pressures. And he was playing for Brighton, so I'm a bit shocked by that.
Yeah.
It's quite low compared to other midfielders for how impressive.
I think he might be the single best transfer package for the whole thing in the Premier League.
Do you think?
Yeah, for the quality of the player and the price they got him at, I think in the end, I think that was a really, really good deal.
He's definitely got the defensive work. He posts the numbers very similar to Idrissa Gueye, who Everton might be signing back, but he's got the volume in the tackles, interception, block.
Yeah.
But again, like I say, there's a little bit of an issue there with his pressures if we're going on StatsBomb's data. That I would have thought that Brighton are a good pressing side, and him not to perform that level in midfield is a little bit of a concern. But Perisic as well. Now, Perisic was playing fullback last season a lot.
Well, he's played for Conte, hasn't he? So he's played.
Yeah, so that's one of those where your manager goes and gets someone that he knows.
It looks pretty safe, doesn't it? And he's old, but it's a pretty safe bet for Conte, isn't it? Absolutely.
And then the centre-back from Barca, Clement Lenglet.
I would refer everybody to the AI scouted assessment of Clement Lenglet. I don't think there's anything to worry about there.
Do you not?
No,
he looks really good on the ball, Dan.
The three lads who do the AI scouted, it's Dave, Carl, and Guy. And they all trashed Longley, absolutely trashed him.
Interesting, because his numbers. Let's do a little bit of a.
Anyway, just listen. It's a defensive side of things, Rosie. So you think overall they've had a good window, haven't they? Right.
Yes.
But what does that add to a team?
Well,
what do you think Conte adds to? How much do we say Conte won the league with Chelsea, 93 points? I think he added 20 points season on season with Chelsea.
I think it's fair to say
but that was a miss. They'd won the league the season before that. They just had Mourinho throw his toys out for it. Came in, glory. Oh, look how many points I've improved. Like that's a Roy Hodgson thing. He is what he is. It was one freak season. Conte's a great manager, but I'm not giving him that improvement.
Okay, so what do you think with an improved transfer window and with a good transfer window and with Conte, what do you think they can add to last season, realistically, chaps?
I think double figures points. I think he definitely added that when he came in last season. It's not looking at anybody else, just looking at what he had to Spurs relative to the manager they had before and one manager they had the season before. He's definitely added 10 points. That
would take him up to 80, 81.
Yeah, no, I'm taking that from what he added when he came from last season. So if we go from what they had, I'd say 75 points for Spurs. I can't see much more than that. They are affected quite badly by the World Cup, and the key thing for me, and looking at all of Spurs' stats, they are so reliant on two players. Dan, I'm not like no. Let's be fair. Let's be fair. It's three players if you look at from the January transfer window on. Kulusevski came in and had some great numbers. Assists, especially shot creation, he was up there top of the league, I think. Mm-hmm. But if they have an injury, significant one, to Kane or Son, I can't see where them... Like, Richarlison's not going to replace Son's contribution. No. He's not going to replace Kane's contribution. And I know
only some of it.
I know Sai is a Kane skeptic, but Kane's numbers in terms of goals and assists last year were as good as it gets, really. So, 10 expected assists and 20 expected goals. If one player gets injured there for 4 months, you're losing so much of your production, Dan, and so much of your link-up.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed saw on Spurs,
and the ball could be knackered.
When you list all the Premier League teams by the shots that they concede and what percentage of those that they managed to block, Spurs were top of the Premier League. They had the most opposition shots blocked by quite a way. Now, my thing, this is, I guess, as I come on here, is my concern with Conte and Spurs is that we all know the Premier League is, they all piggyback off each other, all the teams. And once there's enough video and enough footage of a team, then they all adapt to that team and they start doing the things that team doesn't like. And I would say, are we at that point now where we've got 2/3 of a season with Conte that there's enough video out there for teams to set up and do what Spurs don't want to have done to them?
You let them have the ball, you mean?
Yeah, make them build up normally. Make them build up convention.
You're not going to counter on us. That's it. They'll do what they do to us. You're not countering us. Okay, see what you got, Spurs. And we don't know what they've got. That's the honest truth. We do not know. Conte doesn't know what they've got. Harry Kane can't make one-touch through balls in 50 yards of space by standing in the centre circle if they've got a packed defence. So what can he create once the defenders?
Yeah, he's still having 4 shots a game, though.
What do you mean? He's still having 4
shots per 90. Yeah, I mean,
because the dude will shoot from his own box to get.
So what do we think on Spurs? So do we think the top 4? Yeah, for sure.
I think third, 75 points.
Say.
I don't care, and I think is I don't think they get more than 7. So I the actual number for each team. I'm just going to say thresholds. My threshold for them for Spurs improvement, I think they're a bit of a myth, is 75.
Okay. I'm going to go. They might get as many as 79, Rhodesy, but I agree. I think they're going to come third. I think they're going to come third.
I think that their chance of their variance of output is the biggest of the 4 we're going to talk about here. Because they only need one injury to destroy them.
Yeah.
Everybody else has.
We were talking about Liverpool earlier.
Range.
Yeah.
I still think Richarlison is a good sign-up for them because he does cover all of the front 3, and they do have an extra class player. Yeah. I mean, you don't get to start as regular starting centre forward for Brazil if you're shit.
Yeah, Jesus managed to without scoring, didn't they?
True.
Richarlison plays for Brazil because their manager thinks he is Klopp, and what he's trying to do is create a false 9 that just runs all day long and allows Neymar to do his. That's all it's about, and he runs a little bit more than Bobby now because Bobby's a bit old. I think that's all it is. You've got to remove the thoughts of he plays centre forward, so he must be a player.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That told me that told me. Right, Si, you got Chelsea, mate. What do you make of Chelsea?
Chelsea, if you remember, the October, I think it was they were top of the league. They had a bigger lead than we had at any point last season, and the world was loving Chelsea. And on the pod, I said Chelsea were a myth, and I got absolutely lambasted for it on the internet. And 3 weeks later, they dived and barely recovered more than a Brendan team. And they are the myth. They are a myth. They are going to improve this season a little bit because they replaced the lad they should never have bought, who they never played, with a much better lad who is still, I don't understand why, criminally underrated in England, in Raheem. And they will get a much better production for their team from Raheem so that they can justify their 3rd place finish in the league. I'm going with 76 points for Chelsea, and I think that's their peak, that they could get 76 points. They've got a lot of good players, and so they have much better resistance to injury than Spurs do. They've got a lot more good players, and they have one of my favourite players, who I think who could well be the young star of the season next year in Connor. They've got back from Crystal Palace, and so he'll be alongside Mason Mount, who's very good as well, 10, and they'll be fighting it out as.
They played him right wing in the friendlies. Tuchel's played him Gallagher right wing.
Yeah, he's doing this Tommy Tickle thing, isn't he?
Yeah,
it's a madness.
So, Si, what's holding Chelsea back from trying to bridge the gap to Liverpool and City?
I think it's whoever is buying their 7 left backs. They're
not really utilising their resources very well, I don't think, are they?
They're not utilising their resources particularly efficiently, are they? They apart from they keep recycling. Who I remember Dave talking about in like 2012 as I don't know, when we bought Andy Carroll. I think he wanted us to buy Michi, and he's still not any good. And Chelsea still don't want him, but he keeps coming back off loan. So who've they added this season? They've got Raheem in for Lukaku, Koulibaly in for Rudiger.
Yeah.
They are losing Christensen, who played a decent number of minutes last season, but over the last couple of years, and they're bringing back Ethan Empado.
Yeah.
One of their kids, who's he's a good lad, but nothing spectacular. He's going to barely play along. He's going to fight out for the crumbs of minutes that Chalobah gets. And he's not a game changer. They've lost Saul, and I think they're hoping that Raheem, alongside Connor and Havertz, evolving into the player they hoped are going to be the keys to their squad. But I think they've given up on their without, and I think they have less resistance to injury than they've got than us is the big thing, because they have really important factors throughout their squad that if Rudiger gets injured, if Koulibaly gets injured, they're screwed. If James gets injured, they've got a big issue, and James is going to get injured. He always gets.
Yeah, and then if minutes played for this ever in a season,
he's still a kid, so he's played. Yeah, 2,400.
Yeah,
and that was with
European.
That was with the Europa games. Oh, yeah.
So question for you, Si, tactical question: can Chelsea play 4 at the back with Thiago Silva?
Thiago Silva's like the mummy he's like Mumra. Who knows at this point? He should not be able to get back from.
Yeah. That's what I mean. They have to play a back 3, don't they?
They do have to play a back 3 with him. Yeah, that's my feeling. They have to play a back 3 with him, and I like Koulibaly, but put Koulibaly and Thiago Silva at centre back together, who both like playing left centre back. I think they get done.
Yeah, who's the right centre back in this Chelsea system?
It's one of those kids.
Yeah,
Chalobah or Azpilicueta if he stays.
Yeah, or Ampadu.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've got issues in midfield in the Jorginho, who plays all the time,
Kante's extremely injury prone now.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That Kante, it's coming about that he's actually 47. He just falsified his documents, and so he isn't actually 28. That he's the last 12 years. So his body is falling apart, and Jorginho can only jog. He's got chronic knee issues. And so, they've got real midfield centre midfield problems.
Before last season, wasn't he? As well, he only played 2,700 in all comps. So.
Yeah, who is a phenomenal player. They've got lots of phenomenal players. They largely don't fit together that well, and the opposite of what Chelsea used to have. Yeah. If you remember us talking for so long, they had the perfect recruitment in that they just bought lads that never got
cyborgs. Yeah. Yeah.
And now they've got loads of lads that get injured all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Have they signed Cucurella yet?
They've had a 50 million offer. Oh, madness. I thought the world has come to suddenly this season, big players are going for 35 million all over the place. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's come back to normal. And then Cucurella's going for 50. What?
Yeah. But not only that, they already have Ben Chilwell, and he's back in training.
Yeah,
I just don't get it when you've already got Ben Chilwell who was extremely good left back. You've got Koulibaly, who's your left centre back. Where I just do not get spending that much money on that player in that squad. And you've already got Marcos Alonso, and you've got Emerson still knocking around.
Yeah,
nuts. So you think 76?
It is kind of nuts. I think they get 76. Yeah.
I just have a bit of a rant here. I just think the arrogance of Todd Bowley is absolutely astonishing. To come in from a sport he has no clue about, to come in and think he can be a director of football, sack everybody involved with the old regime, and then do the job himself. I just think it's one of the most arrogant things I've ever seen from an official at a club in any sport.
Couldn't agree more.
Shocking.
I get what you're saying, but do you know he actually not like he doesn't have any direct experience professionally in football, but he has lots within sport. There are lots of similarities. Interact. He has been with Billy Bean, and there's a bunch of baseball dudes that are mates that like have fantasy together, but not football, and he's one of those guys. So he doesn't have any experience, but he does understand football. I think he understands football at a level probably being a little arrogant, but he doesn't understand the intricacies.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine John Henry being director of football instead of Damien Comolli when the Red Sox Fenway first took over? Good God. Anyway.
Unbelievable.
So I think Chelsea slightly worse than last season. I'm going to go 74, 73 potentially. Rosie?
Yeah, I'm with you there, Dan. 73, 74. But even, 76 could still come fourth, and I do think they will.
Fourth. I'm going fourth for Chelsea. Rosie, you fourth?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going that many points that high up. So how many?
Just think everyone else is going to be that bad.
So everybody below the top four are going to be that bad that many points are recycling.
Yeah.
I think 60 for fifth. We'll come on to those two now.
Yeah. I got Arsenal and Man United so quickly on that. Arsenal have fined Gabriel Jesus from Manchester City for a ridiculous amount of money. Alexander Zinchenko from Man City for a ridiculous amount of money. Fabio Vieira after we declined our option from Porto for a significant amount of money. They've signed Marquinhos. I know nothing about from Brazil. Saliba's come back off loan. Guendouzi, Hector Bellerin's come back off loan, and they haven't really. They've let go Lacazette finally, and Guendouzi, I think, and somebody else maybe. So they had big problems with their squad depth last season, Arsenal, and they also had no European competition. They had 13 defeats in the Premier League last season. I don't see how what they've done with the squad that they have already, with the players that they brought in. There's some okay players, I think, in there. I wouldn't say it was a good window. There's potentially some exciting, Arsenal fans are getting very excited about a front four of Odegaard, Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli. Yes, there's some nice players there. They press a lot. I'm struggling to see where the goals are coming from personally. And on Smith Rowe, this is really my one to watch for the season, actually, because of all the things that he was Arsenal's most effective forward in all round last season, pretty much. He had 58% of all his shots on target, 25% shot conversion, and he was 4.3 goals above his expected. I just don't. It'd be really interesting to see, is Emile Smith Rowe actually that good going forward, or is that a severely hot start which is going to come back down to earth? So
he's not even going to play, though.
Who, Smith Rowe?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's not in their first choice three.
He's in the rotation, is he?
Yeah, kind of, but they've got a specific. Did I cut Darth off then?
No, I think you. I thought you cut off. Sorry, mate. Yeah, you were talking about Smith Rowe.
Yeah,
he's a good lad. He's fallen out of love, and in the heat where they play front, and he is now the 5th or 6th in that front 4 rotation.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry about this. As any Arsenal fans, I just cannot see how there is going to be any improvement from last season at all. Rhodesy?
Well, I think Jesus is a really good signing. I think Martinelli's got more minutes under his belt, so will contribute. Odegaard.
Will he score more goals at the Emirates next season than Diogo Jota?
That's his first banter stat, and I think yes, he will. But I'm with you, Dan. I don't see where the volume of goals is coming from.
Yeah,
I don't see. I think if you're going to get 75 points, you probably need about 75 goals, and I don't see them scoring more than 60.
Yeah. I think they'll run into the same problems they did last season. That they'll have a few good results against teams they should beat, and then they'll get absolutely dicked by a half decent team, and then it'll all fall apart. And I guess most importantly, Rosie, I don't see what they've got in the centre midfield areas. There've been no additions there. No. Maybe unless Zinchenko's coming into play, maybe in midfield more. Which might
Zinchenko's been playing in midfield.
Has he?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Saliba's good. That centre half that they bought ages ago. That's come back from loan.
Yeah.
I think they're building.
And also they've also
to get better.
They also have a terrible goalkeeper. I mean, Aaron Ramsdale. He I think he could be one of the worst goalkeepers in the Premier League this season.
He's certainly the most overrated.
Yeah, but I think what we'll see in terms of his metrics, he might want another one to watch. I think he could end up as one of the worst statistical keepers in the league this season.
That's true.
Which brings us on to our favourite club, Manchester United. Manchester United ended last season with 57 goals conceded in the Premier League and a 0 goal difference. They snuck
what a joy to watch it was as well.
They snuck into the Europa League, largely thanks to one man, which was David De Gea. They faced the 5th highest post-shot XG in the Premier League. And De Gea had the 2nd best performance against post-shot XG of any keeper in the league. He actually had higher than Alisson last year, plus 6.7 he saved versus expected. And one other thing here is Man United have the fewest sweeper keeper actions in the Premier League last season, along with West Ham, which maybe is to be expected from Moisey, but only 9 sweeper keeper actions in 38 games by De Gea. Or the other Man United goalkeepers. And De Gea also face the fewest percentage of crosses into the box stopped, which is a thing on how any crosses come into the box, the keeper either blocks them or claims them or punches them away. And he had the fewest in the Premier League with 3.3%. So all this tells me is that David De Gea stays on his line and he's extremely passive and he doesn't come for anything. And with what I've seen of Erik ten Hag and what he's trying to do, I think that is completely incompatible with what Erik ten Hag is trying to do. And I think the gap between United's defence and their keeper is going to be a theme, shall we say, of the season. And I just don't see how they are going to be equipped to cover that, because they're either going to force De Gea to come out and do something he really doesn't want to do, or they're going to have to drop off to make sure that the space is mitigated, which will cause them problems in build-up. They have sold an incredible amount of players, or left. The squad has been incredibly reduced. So Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard, Nemanja Matic, Dean Henderson on loan, Edison Cavani, Juan Mata, and Andreas Pereira, who Fulham actually paid actual real money for, 8 million, which is astonishing. So that they have all those players leaving either on end of contract or on a free transfer, which is quite remarkable. And they've only been replaced, Rhodesy, with a backup left back, a young left back from the Eredivisie, Malaysia, Christian Eriksen, literally resurrected and coming to play on a free transfer, and Lisandro Martinez from Ajax, the famous good short centre back.
Yeah, according to United fans, the next generation of Cannavaro, but it's just I can't see any like cohesion again. I would have thought if you're getting a manager in with such a specific brief of what he's been good at, the first two players you need to get rid of, David De Gea and Ronaldo, because they're the ones that don't fit your system.
Yeah.
In fact, the complete opposites for what you're going to be trying to do.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to implement a system and then doing it half-heartedly with two players who are completely the opposite, it's just going to cause you issues. I can't understand it. And like you said, we're doing this preview a few days before the season's going to start. The window's obviously not shutting yet, so they might still bring in more players, and this might apply to a couple of teams that we spoke about, but particularly Man United, I think.
Yeah.
The De Jongs, another striker, at least, if you're getting rid of Ronaldo. Get rid of Ronaldo. Bring in at least line up a keeper for next season or something. At least have some plan. There must be a plan in place for their keeper, because it makes no sense. You can't play a high line with David De Gea. It's a brilliant 20 minutes on YouTube on Redmen TV with John Harrison, and he goes through the comparison between Alisson and De Gea and what De Gea is good at, which is what you've just spoken about there, which is poor shot XG and his shot stopping. But he's terrible at everything else. And he's particularly terrible at the sweeper keeper stuff. I think Alisson had 9 sweeper keeper actions just against Burnley last season.
Yeah.
And De Gea had 9 all season. It just doesn't make any sense.
And it's the same with Maguire as well. You got Maguire. He doesn't want to play any space behind as well. So it's difficult to see. It's really difficult to see. They've lost all these players, Rhodesy, like literally 8 players, big players, very highly paid players. But it's almost like, for me, from looking at now, this is like, just say Ten Hag, the best he can do is hope to survive this season and not get sacked, and then next summer, where he can actually cull even more of these players that are absolutely no use to him and what he wants to do. And
if I was Ten Hag, that's what I would be saying to my bosses before this season started. I'm saying, look, I've got rid of a significant majority of the players that aren't going to fit my system. We've still got 2 or 3 core players, Maguire, De Gea, Ronaldo's. I'm not being judged based on implementing my system with these 3 players, because it's impossible for me to do it. So I'm going to have to be quite diplomatic. And what's he going to go with? Si, what do you reckon? Is he going to go with like the broken Mourinho press, where you press high and drop deep? And then how are you going to get those players into a system that's going to work with United, because they haven't got it? They have not got the players to implement what Ten Hag was doing at Ajax.
I think the best thing that could happen to United before the season starts is Ronaldo decides he wants to play in Saudi Arabia or China or something.
Yeah. Let's hope he stays.
Yeah, Ronaldo's not playing. But
but he's still going to be there, though, isn't he? He's still going to be at the club as it stands. He's
$500,000 a week.
And we've had the glorious pre-season from Martial that he does every year. So theoretically, Martial and Bruno and Rashford could do a thing.
And Sancho.
With Sancho coming Bruno could play behind them, and Sancho in on one side, on the right, Martial on the left, it could work. It could be very, very iron. I think it's really easy to get caught up in two things you're talking about, Rhodesy, in that what we expect him to replicate what he did at Ajax, because that's the only way he could work, and that's just not how coaches work. They problem solve, and good ones can problem solve. And Klopp didn't come in and instantly go 4-2-3-1 and replicate his dormant. He started to nudge behaviour towards certain principles that he has, and we aren't. I don't know Ten Hag enough to understand what his principles are. What are the key drivers of his principles? So that's one thing. But the second thing is that pressing is the be-all and end-all in everybody's world. You go around 5-year-old football and they talk about pressing. And there are a lot of shit teams in the Premier League who don't have back. So there are lots of teams you don't have to press against because it's pointless. And you can get lots of points against those and then figure the pressing out later as you need to. That's that. So that would be my guess at what Ten Hag is going to do and gradually evolve into whatever high pressing team that he wants. You can absolutely win and create lots and lots of chances without pressing in the Premier League. And that's kind of, he will have the ball a lot and they'll progress in a very expansive way that typical Dutch managers do with width, underlapping, and getting men in the box. And they absolutely have the players to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say his Ajax team, his best Ajax team, was that type of team either. Though it was a classic total football almost. And it was all about build up and individual distribution across all of the back, the back line and midfield. So. But I just don't see how they got the players for that at United either. So, do you see any significant improvement for them from 58 points and a 0 goal difference?
I think they probably underperformed. In all honesty, I hate Man United, but they have players that could easily get 60. They just do. And the league is shit.
65 maybe.
61? Yeah, 65. They could get 65, but I think they're much more likely to get low 60.
Okay. Rhodesy?
I think 60 for both Arsenal and United.
I think Arsenal will be higher than that. I have a higher opinion on Arsenal than either of you two, because I like the lads that play there, and I think they'll be in a natural progression because that's what kids do. They get better. And they've got really, really good, high quality.
I agree with that. I just can't predict it.
Yeah.
They've also got more games than last season because of the Europa League.
Yeah.
That's true. And so I think they'll get. I think that the City are going to get between 91 and 93 points. I'm going 93. And Liverpool's rolling 92 points. So I feel like that's our high point, 102 if Thiago plays 3,000 minutes. And I think 95 is our low. I'm going with a 98-point title victory.
And on
end it now, Dan. Dan, end it now.
On that bombshell, we are going to bid you farewell. And it's been the Monster pre-season preview. Let's see how we're going to do. Rosie's going to edit in Barter's contribution to this as well. Good Lord. Right. We will be back next Monday for this first UP for real of the season against Fulham. And it's the big one this Saturday lunchtime. And until then, up the fucking Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.